Hey everyone, it's Kelly. Thanks for joining me. I am back today with a 12 by 12 scrapbook process video for the Cut Shop. And I'm going to be using two cut files today. I'm going to be using the Everyday Essentials cut file and the You've Been Punk'd cut file. I start the layout by cutting different shapes from both of the cut files onto some different pattern papers from the 6x6 paper pad, and this collection is the Cool Kid collection from Crate Paper. I don't end up using all of these designs, but I do use a few of them on this layout because this layout ends up taking a drastic turn from what I thought it was going to be. I had a completely different design in mind when I started, but I just wasn't able to get it onto paper how I was seeing it in my head. This is the photo that I'm going to be using today, and this is a photo of a self-portrait that my son drew, and I found it in his folder in his book bag when he came home from school one day, and I just thought it was too cute. So I snapped a photo with my camera, printed it off using my Canon selfie, and then I just cut the photo into a circular shape using a die. Now I'm starting to work on the design of the layout, and this is originally how I thought this layout was going to go. I had planned on using different cut files that have that sketchy circular design and just kind of scattering them around the page, starting from the top to the bottom, kind of in a vertical design, but I just could not get it to work. I don't know if it was the colors that I was using or if maybe I cut the cut files too large and they were just competing with the photo, but I play with it for a long time trying to get it to work, shifting things around to try to get more of a balanced look, and it just wasn't happening. So I do play with it for quite some time, so you're gonna see me kind of fuss with it throughout the video. And I want to use the title Don't Grow Up, and this is from the Crate Paper Cool Kid thicker sheet, and they are puffy stickers, so they have a really nice dimension to them, and I liked the pop of black. I liked that it was a nice contrast with all of the other elements that I have on the layout. I do bring in a couple other things from my stash on this layout, like this green heart that I'm going to bring in. That is actually from a Bella Boulevard collection, but for the most part I do use the Crate Paper Cool Kid collection. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of a break trying to figure out what I'm going to do with the design and add some color onto this background. I start with this golden color from Shimmers, and I did not apply any gesso to the background because I wanted the color to soak into the background a little bit, just to help mute the color, just to make it so it wasn't quite so bold. But once I got that on there, I realized that really wasn't the color that I was going for. So I just applied a layer of white gesso right on top of that gold paint that I had applied to the background, and it just covered it right up. So now I have a clean surface to start with again. So I grabbed a brighter yellow from Shimmers, and I am applying that to the background also. And this mixed media for this layout is quite the fiasco. I go through multiple colors and ideas, and I end up starting completely over, but I wanted to leave this in here so that way you could see that it's not always just sitting down and getting it right from the very beginning. Sometimes there's trial and error and things happen and you don't like it and you have to start over. And I like this yellow a lot better than the golden yellow that I started out with. And then I added these red splatters and I didn't really like it. So I thought maybe if I added some blue splatters, it would help hide the red splatters, maybe kind of compete with them a little bit and tone them out. But then I didn't like the blue splatters either. So I decide just to go ahead and add a layer of white acrylic paint right on top of that mixed media that I just applied to the background. At this point, I thought, I don't like it, I can't hurt it, so why not just go ahead and see if I can fix it. So I apply the white paint to the background just to cover up all of that mixed media, and then I thought that I hit record, but I didn't, and I used watercolors this time. They're the Prima Tropicals watercolors, and I applied some yellow to the background, and I didn't like the shape that the watercolor went on to the background. I used the packaging technique, and sometimes you don't have a lot of control on how the color ends up on the background when you use the packaging technique. And I thought it had too much of a square shape. I wanted it to have more of a circular shape since my photo was a circle, and a lot of the cut files that I was using are circles. And in the process of trying to fix that watercolor and trying to make it into a circle, I just made the mixed media portion just too large. It was too big. I didn't like it, so I'm going to cover it up once again with white acrylic paint. Now I'm going to use the same Prima watercolors and I'm going to apply that same yellow to the background, but I'm going to try to keep it much smaller and just keep it focused right behind the photo. And I am going to use the packaging technique again to get that watercolor onto that background. And I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but that background paper that I'm using is not from the Cool Kid collection. It is from an older crepe paper collection. I believe it was called Toy Box. I've had it for such a long time and I left the manufacturing strip on it so I would remember, but I made this layout a while ago and I can't remember if that was the exact name of the collection. So at this point, I'm happier with the mixed media. I like the amount of color that I have on the background and I decided to add some stamping, and that is a retired stamp set from Close to My Heart, and I'm using a blue ink that matches some of the blue die cut pieces that I'm going to be using on the background. And I add the stamping and I add it a little bit too high. I don't really like how it's so much higher than the yellow watercolor. I kind of wanted it all blending in together. So I end up taking a break because at this point I just felt like nothing was working. So I shut the camera off and played around off camera. And this is the design that I come up with. And this is actually the design that stays. So I have just decided to skip the idea of having all those circular images around the layout because I just wasn't able to get it balanced. And I added some of the strips that come with the 6x6 paper pad. It's the strip that holds the pattern paper together into the pad. You can see the circle on it. And I grabbed a few of those, layered them together, and I'm going to staple them at the top and the bottom of the layout. I am going to go ahead and add the mixed media back onto this background, and as you can see, this is a completely different background. I had two of that same pattern paper, so I decided just to scrap the one and I'm going to go ahead and use this one. So I added a layer of clear gesso. I'm going to use the same Prima watercolor, and again I'm going to try to focus the color just right where the photo is going to sit. I just want it peeking out from behind the photo. I really want to try to be controlled with this mixed media, so I am applying very little paint to that packaging so that way I can have that control and only apply the color where I want it to go. So it takes me a few times to get it onto the background to get the amount of coverage that I want because I am applying such a small amount of paint onto that packaging. So now I'm really liking how this is looking. I'm going to start bringing in a few of the elements back onto the background just to make sure that I have enough coverage with that yellow watercolor. And I do bring in a couple other things from my stash. I needed another element of green since I added that green heart. So I do add that green circle with that orange star, and I'm not even sure what collection that's from. It was just sitting loose with some of my flare buttons. And then that orangey red asterisk that I add onto the layout also, I'm not sure which collection that is from. It was included on a sticker sheet that I have in my stash, but the color matched really well, so I decided just to go ahead and use it. I'm going to go ahead and get brave and add the stamping onto the background, and I'm going to use the Tim Holtz platform. I really like this platform because you can fit a 12x12 pattern paper or just a 12x12 cardstock onto this platform, but I found that I do need to add a layer of foam underneath my paper. This stamp platform has foam on the back side, but I found that it still just doesn't have enough cushion. There still just needs to be a little bit more to get a really crisp image. So I just add the foam from the Close to My Heart stamp sets just right behind where I'm going to be stamping, and that seems to work really well. I still have to stamp multiple times to get the amount of coverage that I'm wanting, but I find that the image is a lot more crisp when I add that extra foam. And the stamping really is a minor detail on the layout, but I like that kind of thing when it comes to layouts. Just those small little details sometimes can make such a big difference. And I know it's hard to see it on the video here, but you can see it in the close-ups and in real life when you're looking at the layout. So I'm just going to get my stamp cleaned off and then move this off to the side. And then I'm going to start adding the photo and the embellishments and everything onto the background. And I'm going to hold this up a little bit closer so you can see it in a little bit more detail. That center portion is going to be covered up with my photo, but I just wanted those little stars to kind of be peeking out from underneath the photo and just kind of right along the edge of that watercolor. So the cut files that I end up using, I use that star from the Everyday Essentials, and then that ampersand that is underneath the Hey Buddy, that is from the Everyday Essentials cut file also. This is one thing that I really love about cut files. You can use them as a large focal point on your layout, or you can use them to create your own embellishments like I did here. So that is something that is so fun about cut files. There are just so many different ways to use them. So I'm going to bring everything back onto the layout just to make sure that I like the placement before I start gluing things down. And I am going to use liquid adhesive to adhere everything to the background because I want to make sure that it sticks, especially since I used the gesso on the background for the mixed media. I am going to create a cluster at the bottom of the layout, also right along those strips of pattern paper. And I'm going to use 2 of the cut files from the You've Been Punc'd cut file. And then I'm also going to use another one of the stars from the Everyday Essentials. I just wanted to add 1 line of journaling to this layout just to say that it was Aiden's self-portrait, and I'm going to add it to that little label sticker that I had in the bottom cluster. But that sticker had a slick surface to it, so I wasn't sure how well my We Are Memory Keepers typecast typewriter would type on it. I was worried that the ink might smear. So I tried using my heat gun to set it, but it still was wanting to smear just a little bit when I was touching it. So I grabbed a pen. These are from American Crafts, and I just traced over those letters with this pen, and the pen is permanent ink, so it set it in place, and it still has that typewriter font because I did just trace over it. So that ended up working out perfectly. So I'm going to bring that just a little bit closer to the camera so you can see exactly what I was talking about, just where I traced over that. And then I'm going to adhere it down in that bottom cluster with those other cut files and a few other stickers from the Crate Paper Cool Kid collection. So I decided that I wanted to add a little bit more stamping to the background, and I grabbed the stamp set from Illustrated Faith, and it's just these cute little doodles. And I'm just going to use black ink and stamp them on the background using first and second generation stamping, just where you stamp once and then you stamp a second time without re-inking the stamp. And I just liked that extra pop of black that it brought to the layout, and it was another just element of fun. I'm going to add a few black splatters using Heidi Swapp Black Color Shine. I'm going to add the date, and then I'm going to come in with a paintbrush and black acrylic paint and just paint a few of those same little doodly marks right up along the top portion of the photo right next to the word don't. I just wanted another little pop of black. I used the second generation stamping in that area and just didn't feel like it was quite bold enough. So here are a few still shots of my layout. If you have any questions about the cut files or the techniques I used, please let me know in the comments below. I'll be back again soon with a new layout and process video. As always, thank you so much for watching.